Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. That's right, another Chris Harrison video. Look, you want other content, bring it to me. There ain't nothing else going on out there. Chris Harrison, of course, fired 2 years ago from the Bachelor franchise, and finally doing his tell-all. Are there sort of missed opportunities here, things that we wish he elaborated on? Yeah, of course, but he also did share a lot. One of the things that's fun that we kind of glazed over yesterday was that Chris slams Bachelor Ratings. He says, I'd be lying if I said I didn't check the scoreboard, that being that the show hasn't done well since he left it. But of course, what he's not letting us know is that the show's actually been on a decline since he was also the host. Not to say that there wasn't some faction of audience that decided not to watch because of Chris Harrison. That has to be true. The question is, does Jesse Palmer's audience offset Chris's? As in, when Chris was fired, did the audience of Tayshia and Caitlyn push the show back up when they were hosts, and then afterwards when Jesse Palmer? My guess is no. My guess is that audience did leave because of Chris Harrison. I just don't think it's as big of a reason why audiences have left. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals. Don't leave me. I'm also going to be on Patreon this morning, as I am every morning between the 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. hour Pacific time. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. And of course, this afternoon, Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast. I got to tell you, it's the biggest hit. It's the biggest thing we've done probably all year. The amount of people that are watching that channel is just staggering. And I want to give you guys a shout out right now. We had our peak downloads yesterday, 3,000 downloads. That's 3,000 people listening to a 30-minute to an hour long episode of a podcast every single day. So I'm providing the podcast new information. I make my videos first in the morning, and then I do the podcast. So when new information comes out for the day, I add it all up at the beginning of the episode. So even if you listen and watch every single YouTube video, you might want to download the podcast and just check out the first 5 or 10 minutes of every show as things change. All right. So because here's what I know about you guys. You love a parasocial relationship. If you don't know what parasocial means the term parasocial relationship refers to a relationship that a person imagines having with another person whom they do not actually know. I don't know all of you guys, probably a couple dozen, but you guys, I've gotten to know a part of my life. I'd like to extend the parasocial relationship to the real world with you guys, and join me on February 15th for a stand-up comedy show. I'm going to be doing a stand-up comedy show with Katie Thurston in San Diego, February 15th. She's got 2 different ticket prices. The VIP price is a meet and greet for her. You'll get to meet me either way. Meet and greet for her, and also comes with an adult toy. Let me tell you something. The adult toys will make the ticket price far worth it February 15th. Come for Valentine's Day or for Singles Awareness Day or whatever the hell you want to do. Come check it out. All right, and also, last announcement, our good friend Sarai, who's been a member of our community for several years now, has fallen on some hard times and needs to move out of her current living situation. It's not working for her, and she's got a couple animals, which makes it hard to rent, and she's just looking to get for help to get a deposit down on her new place. It's nothing glorious, just a little studio where a lady can live with her cats. Okay, so if you want to donate to that and understand that Sarai's been a good member of our community and you've got a couple extra bucks to donate, there's going to be a link in the comment section for a GoFundMe. All right, do we have all that covered? Let's get into it. Chris Harrison details Bachelor exit, 20-pound weight loss, checking ratings, why Wells Adams should host, and more podcast takeaways. Now, people have ran with this in so many different directions. We're going to jump right into the checking the rating version of the podcast. He released 2 episodes late Sunday night. We talked about it all day yesterday. You can check the recap if you missed it. But here's what he had to say about podcast rating. Here's what he had to say about the Bachelor franchise ratings once he left. Have a listen.
When people ask what I think of it now, I don't watch. The last thing I think I watched was the last show with Matt James, I think Hometowns. When I left, it was still the number 1 show on TV.
Okay, so that's, first of all, not when you say the number 1 show on TV, that's kind of like in which category? It's the number 1 live. It's the number 1 show on TV on Monday nights on network. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of good TV out there. So we have to be a little more specific. But after I play the rest of Chris Harrison's clip, I'll play you what Reality Steve had to say in defense of rubbishness as it is applied to this scenario.
Now, look, do I keep an eye on the ratings?
Yes.
Do I know what's happening now?
Probably.
I'm not going to say I'm not so humble and whatever to say I haven't paid attention to the scoreboard.
And look, Don't judge Chris Harrison. We've done this in relationships. You ever break up with someone and then a couple years later you're like, let's just see what they're doing, and you want them to be doing well, just not as well as you know. And I feel like that we are that with everyone, right? I want you to do well, just don't pass me, okay? In the hierarchical sense, do okay, just not as you know.
Yes, I do know. I realize the ratings are down 50 to 60%, and the show has changed dramatically. But
50 to 60% from when is the question? Was it 50 to 60% from Claire Crowley, Tayshia's season, or was it 50 to 60% from, Caitlin Bristow's season? Because the show's already been in its decline. Let's not pretend you weren't on the ratings sled as it was going down the hill.
Also, that hurts me a little bit because it's something I took pride in building. And there's still some wonderful people that I talk to on the show, cast members.
So he says, and again, I'm being critical of Chris because I think the podcast that he's done is pretty good. I'm just, there's some areas here where you go, well, you can't take pride in building a show and then say you weren't part of any of the decision making. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't build the house, but I take pride in the structural integrity.
Crew, I love my crew ferociously.
Funniest
and defended them ferociously. They're the most talented men and women in the world worked on that show.
The most talented, in this, I love a good hyperbole. The most talented women in the world, the most talented men and women in the world worked on The Bachelor. Hey, we've got a movie we're going to be shooting in Bolivia. It's a new Scorsese film. Leonardo DiCaprio is going to star in it. Catherine O'Hara plays his mom. It's got about a $150 million budget. Probably going to win an Academy Award. Would you like to be a part of it as the sound engineer? Actually, I'm going to be working on The Bachelor. Hey, excuse me, Steve. We've got a new crew position for you here. We're going to be working on Benicio del Toro's new hit film. It shoots in Romania, and it's probably going to win. Sorry about that. I'm actually going to be filming somebody having sex in a yurt. So, okay, you guys get the point. I understand what he's saying. As far as dating reality TV shows go, they're probably pretty good. But I have to push back and say, actually, it looks like The Bachelor in Australia is far better produced and edited. So The Bachelor in the US might not even be the best Bachelor that is out there.
Directors, producers, art department, lighting, you name it, camera, audio. There was hundreds and hundreds of people. I was the face and the voice of the show. And that's a weird thing when, this reality show is a little different.
Okay, so I get it. I understand what he's trying to do. He's supporting the cast and crew. Yeah, they're good. They're the best that was available. I understand. Yeah, the lighting was great. The guy who sprays the water down on the driveway, probably one of the best water hose operators I've seen as far as dating reality shows go. So I totally get it. But to say that these guys were the best in the world, listen, Variety, and I love the show. Anyone who loves relationships loves The Bachelor, loves to watch the show. The Bachelor hits a milestone 20 years on TV. What's next for the mega franchise? And of course, they talked about the fact that the show keeps on falling in ratings. So the ratings have gone down, but we've also talked about different networks no longer using the Nielsen rating system. Do you understand how the Nielsen rating system work? In part, what they do is they'll call up and say, what are you watching? And they'll take a sample size from different people. Who's answering their phone? Who has a landline anymore? And I'm sure they do what other cable box, things to censor who's watching what, but that doesn't even show whose eyeballs are on the show versus streaming on Hulu the next day or power watching through my channel. There's so many other ways that people are not checking out the show. And then in Variety, they posted the best 20 reality shows of all time. And guess what? The Bachelor's not even on it. And again, this is a curated list, so maybe this person just doesn't like love. But we've got America's Next Top Model. We've got Bands on the Run. I didn't even know that show. VH1, let me tell you something. When you lose to a show from VH1, which I believe stands for Video Hits 1, am I right on that? Legally Blonde, the musical, I didn't even know that was a show, and now I need to watch that show. Big Brother beats it, so that's a very similar reality show line. The Challenge, So You Think You Can Dance, and all these shows. Shark Tank, of course, Project Greenlight. I wouldn't even call half of these reality shows. What's The Chair? The best So anyway, in this person's list, Real Housewives finished ahead of them, Project Runway, and of course, number one would be Survivor, which Survivor wins all the awards. Survivor and Amazing Race win all the awards. Maybe there's a bias against the smut end of the spectrum, which of course is where the show would be, on the smut end of the spectrum. Okay, let's play what Reality Steve had to say in response. If we can find Reality Steve, he's over here somewhere.
Make this comment. When I left the show, it was still the number one show on TV. No, it wasn't. The number one show on TV was The Bachelor. No, it wasn't. It was not even close. So I don't know why he threw that in there. I mean, maybe he left out words about, the number one reality dating show. Maybe. But he said it was the number one show on TV when I left. No, it wasn't. And then he says, do I watch the ratings? Yes. I'm very well aware the ratings are down. And he said that hurts him.
Kind of sounds like Trump, right? The ratings, you couldn't. There was back when I was the host of the show. You couldn't even see all the people that were out there watching the show.
But say you're not mad at.
Here comes a 1-star review for me.
I don't know, that kind of didn't seem genuine. I don't. Now he ended the first podcast with this, but then he said, I can't go into detail on this, but he said specifically, one night in particular, I went home and I drew the line in the sand, and that was it. It was time to take my life back. I wish I could go into detail.
And we don't know what that is, folks. And we don't know what that is.
We may scrap this whole thing, to be honest.
All right, so just to wrap things up, Chris slams the Bachelor ratings. A little clickbaity on the title. Maybe he didn't slam them, but he says, I keep score, and I was on the right side of it. And, of course, it's way more complicated than that. You would have to look into ratings of The Bachelor relative to other shows in the same time slot, relative to other reality shows, how it's doing on streaming. Now, sure, we've kind of burst the Instagram bubble where contestants could just go on the show and become influencers, but you have to remember, Chris Harrison's final full season of The Bachelor was Claire Tayshia's season, and that came after an extended break because of the pandemic. And that season was still happened when we were kind of still in a bubble. So people were like bloodthirsty for content. We were so excited for a new season. It was so long. I mean, before that, they were doing like the best of seasons where they were like Skyping with Nick Vile. Pass. No offense to Nikki over there, but it's like it wasn't that great. So after that, of course, Matt James' season was so dramatic, but because the season ended the way it did with, a lot of turmoil, and Chris Harrison literally was on like leave. Emmanuel Acho came in, and then after that, Chris Harrison was eventually fired after he was then replaced when Katie Thurston tweeted, I don't think Chris should be coming back. It was like too soon. There was no like a 6 to 8 month window to just like chill out. It was like we're filming the next season right away. And because of that aggressive schedule, you could say that in part led to like the wildfire not being extinguished in time. And then from there, I think the show realized, hey, we can do this without him. So what percentage of audience did left the show because Chris Harrison was no longer there? My guess is, I'm taking a random guess, 5 to 8%. That's my guess. What set of audience came to the show because Jesse Palmer is now there? 0.5%. I don't think Jesse Palmer brought people to the show. I think Chris Harrison's departure made people leave from the show. And I think that's an honest, you might say it's 15%. It's not 50. It's not 40%. It's definitely not 25%. But there is a segment of people that did leave the show. The show's going to have to find new ways to bring new audience to them. I think they're trying on TikTok. It ain't working. They're going to have to find another way. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to have an update on this story as it comes out, what people are saying, and also some of your voicemails. If you're still listening, we have a voicemail line, 401-213-9828, and you can call that voicemail line. I'll play it on the podcast if I have time, and we'll discuss what you think about all this. More content coming your way right after this. Don't forget, link in the comment section to donate to Sarai's GoFundMe to get her in a new apartment. I've also got tickets in the comment section if you want to see Katie Thurston and myself perform stand-up comedy February 15th in San Diego. We'll talk to you guys in a second.